Welcome back to 360 Sports. I'm Emily, and I'm here with Haley, Jack, and Chase. So, guys, let's dig into some college football. Our headlines. After a 38-9 win over Illinois, in which he threw 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown, Dillon Gabriel is now the betting favorite to win the Heisman over Ashton, Cam, and Travis. Do you believe he deserves to be above the rest?
For me, right now, I don't think Gabriel should be in the lead. He's coming off an incredible performance. He's showing up when it matters. His best game of the season was against Ohio State. But I think it's a little voter fatigue with Genty and Cam Ward. I think them two still deserve to be over it. Genty just had his worst game of the season. I say that. He went for 130 yards and touchdowns still. I think Gabriel, the hype is a little too much. He's coming off a couple good performances, but I think right now Cam Ward and Genty still over for me.
And as much as I like Dillon Gabriel, I still think Ashton Genty is the Heisman favorite. I mean, I think he's the best player in college football, and he's putting up numbers that we haven't seen a running back put up in many years. He already has 1,376 yards and still going, 18 touchdowns already. He's on pace for a 2,000-yard season with 30 touchdowns. And not to mention, he has Boise State number 15 in the AP poll for the first time since 2016. So I think that's notable. Oregon's already been in that position. They have a good team. Ashton Genty really carries this Boise State squad.
I would completely agree with that. I mean, Genty, like you said, he had a terrible game, but he didn't have a terrible game. And if he could continue to play like that, easily he wins the Heisman.
Yeah, and he's done it against his top competition. I mean, one of his best games of the season was against Oregon earlier in this year. So I think Genty doesn't really deserve to be put under Gabriel betting-wise. I think Genty deserves to be number one.
And the thing I like about the Heisman Award, it's a lot different from the NFL MVP. The NFL MVP is like a quarterback award. We all know that. Yeah. Running backs don't win it. If they did, CMC would have won it last year. As for Heisman, any position can really win it. We've seen Devontae Smith win it. We've seen a number of running backs win it. So I think Ashton Genty is going to take it home this year.
I would agree. I mean, his bad game is like the average player's good game. So who is your Heisman winner? Which we already kind of covered. But
yeah, for me, right now, it's Genty still. I think Cam Ward's actually pretty close. But right now, I'd go with Genty.
I'm going to do the same exact order. I'm going to do Genty 1 and then Cam Ward 2.
I'd say Genty, Gabriel. I think he's coming off a solid win. He's playing really well. And then I'd go Ward.
All right. Moving on, the SEC has been full of upsets this season. And just this past week, we saw Texas A&M upset LSU 38-23, and Texas struggled in a 3-point win over Vanderbilt. Who are the true contenders for the SEC title? Are there any? Is there really a number one top team in that conference right now?
I mean, you look at it, it's rough. Every single team that we think is the favorite in the SEC just seems to go down. Right now, A&M, they're coming off an amazing win against LSU. We were talking about LSU like they were possibly going to win the SEC against Georgia and Texas. Texas lost to Georgia. Georgia lost to Bama. Bama lost 2 games. SEC's crazy this year.
It is. I'm going to say my best team in the SEC is Georgia, as long as they're not playing Alabama. For some reason, Alabama seems to be Georgia's kryptonite. And for the past 5 years, Georgia's been able to steamroll over everybody in the SEC except for Bama, even under their new coach. Saban dominated Georgia, and now the new coach, they beat Georgia in a thriller. But we've seen the same Georgia that we've seen in the past years. They're beating teams. They're beating them by a lot. They just beat Texas. That was their welcome to the SEC game, I would say. They steamrolled them in their home stadium. So I'm going to go with Georgia coming out on top.
I had the completely same points. I think Georgia is the number one team in the SEC. I mean, of course, everyone's losing. Yeah. You think one team's going to win one day, and then they don't. So, but I can't put the Bulldogs not at number one. I mean, yes, they lost to a very good Alabama team, but they also beat a very good Texas team. So in terms of this, I'll talk about it later. I think Georgia's still going to go to the SEC title game.
Yeah, I agree. I think Georgia is number one right now. I think it's 1A and 1B with Texas. Texas didn't really play up to it, and it was in UT, Austin. And I don't know about Texas this year. A&M's close. I mean, they're undefeated in SEC, and up to this point, that's really impressive. I mean, we see the SEC, every team's losing, but I think Georgia is.
Yeah, I like what I've seen out of Texas A&M. I just don't think they're as good as Georgia, but they're definitely either second or third in the conference.
Yeah. Has there been like an SEC title team that like has surprised you and you've been like, wow, I really didn't expect that team to play like that, either good or bad?
I gotta say, I don't think they're competing for the title, but Vanderbilt, they
Yeah.
just almost beat Texas,
Yeah.
and they beat
Yeah.
Alabama
Mhm.
by a lot. So that's the first time they've done that in a very long time. You can argue that's Alabama's new coaching, but it's an achievement to be Alabama, no matter how good or how bad you are.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd completely agree with the Vanderbilt call. I mean, Alabama maybe not be ranked as high as they have in previous years, but Alabama is still a very good team. You can never count them out. So Vanderbilt, like you said, beating Alabama, I'd say they're the surprise this year.
How do we feel about the Big 12? Are there any surprises in there?
I mean, we see two of the last 8 undefeated teams right now are BYU and Iowa State. They're both coming out the Big 12. Big 12, I don't know if it's that good this year, and I think maybe that's why a couple teams are undefeated. Kansas State's in there. It's going to be a competitive conference. We'll see who gets that automatic step to the playoffs. But the Big 12 is like eating up a little bit. A couple undefeated teams. I like BYU a lot.
I've been really surprised with BYU. Pleasantly surprised. They're doing really good. Still undefeated, and their schedule is looking pretty easy for the next couple of games. They play Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston, which are all winnable games in my opinion.
I'd agree. BYU is definitely the surprise. Yes, in terms of, I feel like you see it a lot through college football, especially this year. The schedules are really easy, and I think that's why you see a lot of these teams going undefeated, like BYU and Iowa State. But I think BYU is going to continue to do very well.
So, moving on to the talk of the campus. It's Ohio State week. The second half Nittany Lions showed up yet again this week, which I have always said we are a second half team, and I will stick by that. But they came back from down 10-7 at half to win 28-13. And Bo, he came out strong in the absence of Drew due to the injury. I mean, he threw only 2 incomplete, and he threw a passing touchdown. We all know this is the most important game left on the schedule for Penn State. So what does Penn State as a whole have to do to get past their demons and finally defeat Ohio State after 7 years?
It's been a while.
One thing, I mean, we saw Bo play good. The offense was minimalized. They did play super simple for him. I think Drew needs to play. I don't think you come into this game and have a super simple offense. You need to be dynamic. You need to stretch the field. You need Drew Eller. I don't think Bo can stretch the field as well as Drew can.
I'm going to have to disagree with that. I think Bo is a dual threat quarterback, and Penn State runs on a running game offense. You see there are 2 awesome running backs. We have the Singletary and then read option with Bo. I think that's deadly. We see NFL teams do it all the time. It's kind of like the new generation of running the football. So I think Bo's going to bring the spark to this team that they need to beat Ohio State, which they haven't done since 2017. But the nice thing about this game, it isn't a must-win for Penn State. I think that they could lose and win out and still easily get in the top 10. However, if they beat Ohio State, they can almost clinch that playoff, and they can knock Ohio State out of it. So there's some pretty big implications on this game. But if we don't win, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I would agree. It isn't the end of the world for Penn State. I mean, the schedule wasn't that good leading up. You had a test with USC. You had a test with Wisconsin last week. But I would have to say you need Drew to start this game. I mean, obviously, Bo is used as an asset throughout the games this season already. But you need Drew for consistency. I think this team depends on him. And obviously, we saw that they were stirred up a little bit, but then Bo came out strong. And Bo coming in would obviously help out this team. I mean, his run game's insane. But I think they need Drew for a consistency aspect. And like you said, even if they do lose, it's not the end of the world, but it would be good for playoff contention.
Yeah, I think key to this game, you got to slow the game down, play your pace, and you don't turn the ball over. Bo, we've seen Bo is prone to turning the ball over.
Yeah.
Drew doesn't turn the ball over. He had that game against USC, threw 3 interceptions. He doubled his career total in that game. Drew don't turn the ball over. I think you need Drew Aller to win this game.
So given the other injuries that we also faced last weekend, what do we think that's going to affect our play game at all, or our odds of pulling a win?
Yeah, deny Dennis Sutton, DDS. He was banged up last week. He came off a couple times. He's one of the best pass rushers in college football. He makes up maybe the best pass rush duo in college football, him and Abdul. I want to see how Will Howard comes into Beaver Stadium. He's been talking a lot. He's a Penn State native, PA native, I should say. We'll see how he plays. It's a big, big atmosphere.
Yeah, I think the quarterback situation is unique because Ohio State isn't really going to know how to scheme against the offense since Drew Aller and Bo Pribula are 2 completely different quarterbacks. One's more of like a runner. The other one's just a strong arm, stays in the pocket. So they're going to have to prepare for both quarterbacks because we really don't know who's going to be playing. We haven't gotten many updates. We know that Drew went down with that injury. We don't know how severe it was. So I guess we'll see on game day.
I think that's going to be a game time decision, and I think that's going to stir up Ohio State. I mean, that would be Penn State's key to winning this game is to stir up Ohio State, and Penn State's defense needs to show up for first and second half. They need to play start to finish, or we're not going to win this game.
We've seen so many times the second half, this defense turns it on, they allow 3 points, and we end up winning the game. If you go out shaky first half against Ohio State, you might not make it to the second half. This might not be a game going into the second half.
I agree. This is one game where we can not rely on being a second half team. So would it be like a good strategy to have Bo in on the first half just to kind of throw Ohio State off? And
if Drew's healthy, I don't know if they put him in for the whole first half, but I definitely think they should put him in this game plan. Put like more design plays in for Bo. We see him go in for the read option a lot. If we could do more of those, more passing plays for him, let him show off his arm talent, just anything to mix up that Ohio State defense.
Yeah, I think you'll see them utilize both quarterbacks as much as the other this weekend. That's going to be the key. I mean, not saying that Aller going out was good, but it did throw Wisconsin for a loop, and I think it's going to throw a very good Ohio State team for a loop.
That's kind of what we saw with Texas with Arch Manning and Ewers. You have to scheme for 2 different quarterbacks. You don't know which one's going to be playing, if one's going to get hurt, and you have to be prepared for both of them.
How do we think our defense is going to play against a very solid offensive team?
These receivers are scary, man. This is probably the best receiver duo in the nation. J.J. Smith, Ibuka is going to be one of the best first receivers taken off the board. It's going to be hard for the secondary. They've struggled a little bit from times, but I think this pass rush is going to hold enough and get enough pressure where we won't have to worry about it too much. They didn't really throw the ball well last game against Nebraska. So
I'm not going to say I don't think it's going to be a shootout, but it's definitely going to be one of the more higher scoring games that we've seen this season.
Yeah, and like you said, they did struggle against Nebraska last week. And I think as long as our defense stirs them up, stay tight to the ball, we're going to be fine. We just have to play as well as we do in the second half, in the first half.
I would agree. So moving on, we now have undefeated contenders or pretenders. As of this weekend, there are only 8 FBS teams left undefeated, some of which are surprising, like Indiana after they defeated Washington 31-17 this past weekend. Pick one surprise team to discuss that could stay undefeated and why they've been dominant so far. And then pick another team that you think won't be undefeated for long and discuss why.
I could go first. I feel like Oregon's going to remain undefeated. I feel like it's really hard to say that they won't stay undefeated. Their only big test was Ohio State. Michigan might stir them up a little bit this upcoming weekend. They have Wisconsin on the road as well, but they're not games that they're going to struggle with. I mean, if they could beat Ohio State, they could beat potentially every team in the nation, and they're going to be going to the Big Ten championship.
My undefeated team I wanted to highlight is BYU. They beat Kansas State. They crushed Kansas State. This is a good Kansas State team. Beat ranked SMU earlier in the year. I think they're perfectly in line to go the rest of the way, take it to that Big 12 title game. Only test is really Utah. We might see that Utah we saw at the beginning of the season. We haven't seen it for a while, so I don't think we'll see it. I think those Mormons are storming down there.
Yeah, I put BYU as well. I did not have BYU being undefeated this far in the season on my 2024 bingo card, but here we are. They've been putting up like 30-plus points almost every game. Their offense is electric, and their next 4 games, as I mentioned earlier, pretty easy. They're all winnable games. I think they could win their conference, and with a conference win, they'll automatically get in the college football playoff. I don't know how long they'll last in the college football playoff, but they'll have an undefeated regular season.
I also had BYU, so almost unanimous, but I do not see them staying undefeated for this long to begin with. So I think given that they have stayed undefeated, I think that they're on a winning streak, and I think that they might keep that winning streak going.
I agree with Oregon. Oregon, they don't have anyone until the Big Ten title championship. And I think Miami's a team. Their schedule's a little easy. Yes. Until the ACC championship, they'll probably play Clemson. That's one where it could get shaky for them, but I think Miami's going to ride out this regular season.
All right. Your undefeated team that
is going down this week.
I think that Indiana's not going to remain undefeated. Yeah. They still have yet to play Michigan, which Michigan obviously is struggling this year, but they're still a good team. They have the assets that they could use to beat Indiana, and obviously Ohio State's going to beat Indiana. I mean, if Ohio State pulls off a win against Penn State, which I'm not wishing on, but if they do, there's no doubt that they could easily beat Indiana, and Indiana's going to go down.
Yeah. I have Pitt. Pitt's really had a really surprising year for me. They're still undefeated. I don't know how, but this week they play SMU. I think it's done this week. SMU, I think they're one for ACC championship contender. I like Kevin Jennings, their quarterback. I think SMU, they're going to have them this week.
All right, my pretender is Miami. They're a very fraudulent football team, in my opinion. They struggle against teams like Virginia Tech and Louisville. Their offense is good. Their defense is very shaky. They give up a lot of points. I think they're a lot worse than the record shows. Yes, they're undefeated. I don't think they're going to make it through the season undefeated. I think they have a chance to lose to Duke this upcoming week or Syracuse in the last week of the season. And I also don't think they're the best team in the ACC. I think Clemson has them beat for that too.
I think Syracuse is a test for them, but we just saw Pitt dominate them. I think Miami's a much better team than Pitt. They have Cam Ward. They know how to get through football games. I think I'm going to disagree. I think Miami's getting through the season.
Unfortunately, my team is Penn State. You know, we've had some games where we've struggled against teams that we should not have, like Bowling Green. We should not have struggled against that, and we did. And so I'm a little worried going into the OSU game, especially with the injuries that we had last week. I think that really could affect how our team plays and how they work together as a team, because they have to be really like on the same wavelength to beat Ohio State, which I don't know if that'll happen.
I don't want to agree with you, but unfortunately I do.
Yeah, I think there's too many times where you look so slow in the first half. One of these times they're going to get caught, I think.
Yeah.
I hope they prove us wrong, but I'd have to agree. I mean, we look shaky against Bowling Green. That's not looking good for us.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.
So it's getting to that time of year when games mean more for teams hungry for a spot in the college football playoff. And the championship contenders will want to continue their dominance. For this segment, pick two teams that you believe will go head-to-head in the national championship game and give a breakdown as to why and a possible prediction for your national title game. Haley, let's start with your pick.
All right. So for my pick, I picked Oregon Ducks and the Georgia Bulldogs are going to face off in the national championship. Oregon is a solid team. They obviously look really good. They beat Ohio State. They look so good. They deserve their number one rank in the country right now. As for Georgia, Georgia did suffer a loss to a very good Alabama team, but they beat a very good Texas team. So I think we're going to see both of these teams. They're going to dominate the rest of each of their seasons, even though they may play. Georgia has Tennessee on their schedule still. I think they're still going to pull it off. We're going to see them in the national championship. And I think it's going to be a very close game. And might be too far to predict ahead, but I think it's going to be 38-35 in favor of the Oregon Ducks in the national championship.
I like it. I also have Oregon for mine, a little preview.
Go ahead, show us what you got.
Yeah.
All right, Jack, what's your pick?
My pick, I hate to say this. I'm going with two Big Ten teams. It's horrible. Neither of them are Penn State. My pick, I am going with Oregon OSU. Yes, I know. Ohio State. I'm wearing a Penn State quarter zip. I hate it. Oregon right now, I would love to see this matchup again. We saw in earlier in this year. I think we're either going to see it Big Ten championship or the national championship. Oregon, they have an easy road. They really don't have anyone else unless they have a really bad downfall. I think we're going to see them in the Natty. They have maybe Georgia, Texas, the loser of the SEC championship. I think they play them in the semifinals. I think they could squeak past that. For Ohio State, is this the year Ryan Day can get it done? I don't know. I think so. He has a $20 million NIL roster. If he can't, there's got to be questions asked. I think Ohio State, they're going to have to play the SEC title winner. They're going to have to play Miami. With this roster, they should be able to get it done. I think at the end of the day, I got to pick Ohio State to win the Natty. I hate it, but I have to.
I don't know. After that game, I don't know if I could pick Ohio State over Oregon. Yeah. Oregon looked too good.
As much as
I don't know.
As much as it would pay me to see two Big Ten teams in the championship that's not Penn State, I think that would be an awesome game. We already saw them play earlier this season.
It was cinema. Yeah.
All right,
Chase.
I'll show you guys my picks. All right, so as for me, I have another SEC rematch. I have Texas versus Georgia. These are both very good teams. They each have one loss. So the expectations are high for both of these teams coming in the season. I don't know what the pre-rankings were, but I'm sure they are 1 and 2. Well, we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be for Texas. I'm assuming it's going to be yours. And we know Georgia has Carson Beck. They're two good quarterbacks, two good teams. I think they're going to rematch. We already saw Georgia dominate Texas. I think it's going to be a little bit closer this time. However, I do think Georgia's going to pull this one out again, and Kirby Smart's going to be able to hoist another trophy with this special Georgia group.
I'd be very surprised if Georgia didn't make it back to the Natty, but this
Yeah.
would be such a good rematch.
That would be such
It
a
would
good
be a good
game.
rematch.
I would
Hopefully,
love
there's
to
no
see that.
bottles thrown this time.
Yeah. Okay, now it's time for my pick.
Let's see
So
What do we got?
I'm going to contradict Jack, and I'm going Oregon and Penn
Oh,
State. You know,
oh,
Oregon is voted right now as the best team so far. And I really believe that if Penn State can pull through and win against Ohio State, we could go to the Natty. And I think Oregon would absolutely win that game. However, I think if we do beat Ohio State, we could get there. And I think that it could be a good game.
I think
Yeah.
if we beat Ohio State this weekend, we might be able to beat Oregon. I mean, you might make the argument to say that. I don't know. It's
As
possible.
much as I would love to see this, I mean, it's a lot to ask. We're going to have to win, 3 tough games against top 10 teams in the nation?
Yeah.
I don't know if this team could do it. We never can.
If Penn
They never
State
can.
does pull it off though in the regular season, they finish 1 in the Big Ten. They do get
Yeah.
a first round bye, I believe,
Very
the
true.
first 4.
Yes.
That's a big advantage.
Yeah.
We'd go against a tired team. We'd have a 2-week break. That it could happen. It's not impossible. It's a well coached team. I think they could do it. Hope they do. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but
Yeah,
it's a
like I
possibility.
said, I think it all comes down to this weekend's game,
It
and I
is
think
gonna come
so
down
much
to
is going
it.
to change.
A
I
lot.
mean, if Penn State does beat Ohio State, we see this matchup in the Big Ten championship most likely even closer than the college football championship. So I don't know. Maybe we do. I don't know if they could beat Ohio State at the end of the day, though. They never can get it done.
No. So let's switch it up to the big weekend slate, in what should be yet another big weekend for college football. There are plenty of games that should be super fun and some potential upsets. So I want to discuss our favorite game of the week and also pick a potential upset for the weekend.
So for me, we talked about A&M a lot. They just came off this big win against LSU. They play South Carolina. So South Carolina just destroyed Oklahoma. They took Alabama to the test. They should have beat Alabama. I don't know what's going to happen in this SEC. We see every team lose. I think A&M could be going down this week.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a big matchup that I'm excited for. What I'm not excited for is the big noon kickoff, Ohio State versus Penn State. I don't know why they keep playing them on 12 o'clock. They know that Penn State fans are electric at night. I think they're against us. They're not. They never put us night against Penn State or Ohio State, but it's whatever. The crowd's still going to be electric despite it being 12 p.m. game. I think the backup from Central, if he plays, Bo, he could lead Penn State to victory. I also think Drew has the capability. It's going to be a good game. It's going to come to the wire. It's going to be decided in the fourth quarter. So I'm ready for that.
They definitely screwed us over with making it at 12 o'clock. I think the NCAA has a problem with us, I would say, because I don't think Ohio State would be able to handle us if it was a 7 o'clock game. I mean, everyone knows Beaver Stadium is electric at night.
Yeah.
They didn't want Ohio State to lose. They wanted them to go back to the Natty. I don't like it, but it's my big game of the week. I mean, how could you not say it's not it's the best ever? It's gonna determine how the playoffs play out for everyone. It's gonna change a lot.
And college football game day is going to be here for the first time this season. It's going to be an electric environment. I'm excited for that.
Yes.
I don't get how you can go into this and make a 3 and 5 matchup at 12 o'clock.
No.
I don't understand Fox. I don't understand what their marketing is. People are going to watch this no matter what time it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame.
I mean, yeah, it's one of the biggest games of the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So I think no matter what time of day it was, they would watch it.
Yeah.
But I think that my favorite game this week is also my potential upset. But I'm going to go with Oregon playing Michigan.
Ooh.
I'd like to see Oregon win because any team that beats Michigan is a solid team in my book. But I mean, Oregon is undefeated. And I mean, Michigan was one of the best teams last year. And now this year, they're not playing so
Iffy.
hot.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I think it'll be a fun game. And I think that, you know, it could have a potential upset if Michigan beat Oregon. I don't think they would, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to ask for. They're in Michigan, so anything can happen this season. Anything can happen. We saw
Mhm.
Vanderbilt beat Bama.
Yeah.
I wouldn't count Michigan out necessarily for this game. I mean, yeah, Oregon beat Ohio State, but like,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I love anybody who beats Ohio State
Yeah.
or Michigan, but
Yeah.
Oregon, maybe Michigan will find something wrong with Oregon's defense or their offense, and
Yeah.
they could pull off a win at their home stadium.
Yeah. And I don't think Michigan, the stadium gets enough credit for how loud they can be.
No.
I know
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
very bad environment to play in when you're the opposing team. I don't think Oregon's looking forward to playing there, but they could cause a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it happen with Penn State and Wisconsin. I mean,
Mhm. Yeah.
obviously we were
Yeah,
a
they
little
were
stirred
loud.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, if Penn State beats Ohio State, how are we getting the field goal post out of the stadium?
Ooh.
That was
Wow.
a very
That's
good point.
such a good
I was
point.
going to ask.
I
I was
actually
like,
was going to
are
say
we going to
that.
storm the field if we beat Ohio State?
100%.
This is the first time in.
100%.
Are we stealing the goalpost?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're
But
taking
where's
it to
it
the
gonna
go?
top of Mount Nittany.
Okay, because we don't.
That's a really hard hike without
I
a
know.
goalpost. I feel like maybe we should take it somewhere like the Arboretum or something. That's
Yeah,
a little
I
more,
guess they do have
Throw
one.
it
a little
in
more
the fence.
achievable.
Usually they
Arboretum's a
put it in
good one.
places that have like a big body of water.
Put
We
it in
don't
the
really have
fountain.
that. Yeah, we have the
Ooh.
fountain.
Put
They
it in
can
the
go in the
fountain at the
fountain.
Arboretum.
It's got to go to Arboretum.
I'd
I
be-
don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if I'd be able to help out. I'm in a boot, so I mean, I
Hey, I mean,
I'll still run. I'll
if
still run. I
Michigan
don't
can
care.
beat Oregon, then maybe you can take the goalpost to the
Yeah,
Arboretum
maybe
with us.
I'll carry it single-handedly then.
So is that where we're taking the goalpost? The
I'd say
Arboretum?
that or Old
Arboretum.
Main. Like
Or
the-
Old
the
Main.
Old Main would be
Okay,
good.
okay, yeah.
That'd be a good
We have to
spot.
be
on the
careful
lawn.
with all the buildings, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
big. Like I've never stood next to a college football goalpost, so
Yeah.
I don't know like how
They're
big
really
they
big.
are.
It's pretty
They're really
big.
So, but if you have enough people carrying it, it's not going to be heavy. We can manage
We'll
traffic.
get it out there. I don't know how
can-
they get it out of Beaver though.
Yeah, the problem is we
That's
can
what I was
barely get the
thinking, yeah.
lion up the,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
crowd.
Yeah.
So I'm not so sure we can get the goalpost
I
up
don't
the
know.
crowd.
The field is definitely getting stormed this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
If we pull
If we
off
win,
this
yeah.
is the
Oh, yeah.
biggest thing
How are
ever.
we getting it out of the stadium?
Gosh.
All right, so we
We'd have to
bring
be
it up.
very-
We don't bring it like they don't have a tunnel. I don't believe. So
They have a tunnel
There-
underneath, but
there
I think the
is.
field goal.
More-
post
But
it
I
won't
don't know
fit.
if it'll fit. Honestly, I
think we'd
don't-
have to bring it up through
Guys,
the
they
stands.
thought this through. They thought this through.
Either
They
that,
made
or
the.
we'd have to bring some sort of thing that cut the goalpost into like little chunks, and
Oh,
we could bring it
yes.
out in line, like straight lines.
That'd be too crazy.
I
don't
think
know.
security would get us
Yeah.
before we.
They
And
might
one
be equipped with
cut.
tools.
I don't know what even would cut down a goalpost, to be honest.
Some sort of
Yeah,
assault.
I don't know.
Yeah.
A helicopter?
Oh,
Ooh, a
helicopter.
helicopter.
You
Yeah,
know,
they
I
have
don't know
they
who's
have
bringing
those
out a
on the
helicopter
website.
after the game, but
if we manage to beat Ohio State,
there
I'd say,
probably is a
I
helicopter.
say a
in the area.
helicopter is
Yeah.
very warranted.
Anything could happen if we beat Ohio State.
So we're gonna put it
We'll
on a
make sure of it.
helicopter.
Yeah,
Put some
for sure.
cable wires hanging from the helicopter and take it out of the stadium and drop it off.
An Old Main.
On
On
Old
Old
Main,
Main.
Arboretum.
or in the Arboretum.
Then
Yeah.
We
if
still-
you got
we
a
still gotta
helicopter,
decide
just
that.
throw it on Mount Nittany at this point, though.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. You're
you're
right. That
right.
would
Yeah,
be cool. You could like stick
Yeah,
it
that'd
outside.
be
on the
very
top,
nice
like, it's
view.
like a
But then
flag.
nobody would see it ever. If you put it on Old
Yeah,
Main,
yeah.
everybody that drives by is like, "Wow, they beat Ohio State. Their goalpost
Their
is
goalpost
in
is on
Old
their
Main
Old Main."
lawn."
How long would it stay there, though?
Probably not that long.
Probably
Actually, no, probably a hot minute. It took us this long to figure out how to get it out of the
not.
stadium.
Yeah, I think
so.
Penn State would let us do it.
We'll pay
Would
the
they?
fine.
Yeah.
We'll pay the fine. Between the four of us? Is that a
No.
four-way
Uh,
cost?
All the students.
all-
it's
every
free.
student.
Okay,
We'll
They
because
get
that's
take a
gonna
break
be
from,
it's gonna be an expensive
dining hall.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, that is all we have for tonight's show. Shout out for tomorrow's basketball show. Stay tuned. I'm gonna be watching it. You guys should watch it.
Mhm.
Thanks for joining us.